Hello all, welcome back to From the Depths. Now today I've got something a little special for you guys. I will be starting a new series called FTD for Noobs. This would be an incredibly simplistic look at the various complicated systems in this game, which I will teach you how to use them and how to use them exceptionally well when we get further and further into the series. But for number one, we'll be doing APS 101. Today I'll show you the absolute basics of how to make the thing, what each component does, how it can be used, how to make it better, a small example, a turret example, and some use cases in the future. Now, for the absolute basics, let's go over all the pieces. So here we have your firing piece. This is the bread and butter section. Every part here in this little small area, these are almost essential to every gun you're going to work on. But this, the firing piece, this is the heart and brain of this operation. So, as you can see, we look at it, we get a little bit of information about it. We have its gauge right here at 60 millimeters. We have 0 gauge increasers because this is the default gauge size of it, aka the projectile size. We see we have no shell loaded. We have no shells available. As you can see, this gun has absolutely nothing attached to it, so of course. Now then, to give this some angle of fire to where you can aim up, down, left, and right and all that jazz, you will need a mantlet. Here we have an mantlet. This is a very versatile mantlet meant to be equidistant in all 360 degrees, so up, down, left, right are all equal. Then you need a barrel. This is what will guide your projectile, as with any gun or projectile-based weapon in the world. Here you have coolant systems. This is a profound system in the game. You have 3 things limiting your weapon's fire rate. One is intake limit, one is loader limit, and one is coolant. This is very important. Next, we have the thing that tells your gun what shell to fire. We open this bad boy up. We're greeted by this relatively complicated UI. I will go over how to make shells much more in depth in the future, but for today, just know that we're having a small gunpowder casing with a sabot head for a 60mm gun, and that will be our test shell. Now, moving over to here, I mentioned loaders. Loaders are what projectile you're actually putting into the APS system. They come in a variety of sizes from 1 meter all the way up to the 8 meter here. The 1 meter has this thing called a belt feed loader. It's meant to kind of empty instead of low all the time. I'll explain that later. You also have clips that attach to these loaders so you can store more projectiles into the gun. Be careful, some projectiles are very, very explosive, of which I will explain later. And they come in 2 flavors, where you have the solid ones and then the see-through ones. The see-through ones, they're a bit more intense on like your computer's resources, but they look damn cool. Now, lastly, we have recoil. This determines your accuracy for your gun on top of the barrel length. So, to make things simple, your barrel needs to be a minimum length for your gun to have a base accuracy. If we come to this particular shell, we'll see here that our barrel needs to be at least half a meter. Everything in this game works in at least meter increments, so even the shortest barrel we could give it will give us full base accuracy. However, longer barrels do end up having better accuracy. On top of the fact, you see our speed here is 1,265 meters per second. If you look here, our barrel length for full propellant burn is 2.8 meters. This means we need at least a 2.8 meter barrel, which is what we rounded up to 3 meters, for us to get that full speed out of the projectile here. So keep that in mind for later on. Now, let's move over to some of the other barrel variants. Of course, we have the standard barrel, which I showed here. This comes in a variety of flavors. Let's open it up real quick. It comes in your typical 1, 2, 3, and 4 meter varieties. But also we have these ones, which are the heavy barrels. It comes in 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. We have the start ones, which kind of slope outwards. If you see how it slopes from a normal barrel to a heavy barrel size, and then vice versa for the insides, where it goes from heavy barrel to normal barrel size. We also have bore evacuators. These are phenomenal for upping your gun's coolant rate slightly if you can't fit a bit more into your Tetris. These are muzzle brakes. What they do is they take the unaccounted for recoil and they chop it in half for how much your ship is going to be experiencing. And by that I mean when bullet go that way, ship go that way. So these go ahead and cut down the amount of force your ship imparts by 75%. So as you see here, the muzzle brake absorbs recoil, doesn't exert any physical force on the firing vehicle instead of 1/4. So these are great in case you have a very small craft with a very large gun. I know some people love that kind of stuff. Now these are the more advanced pieces. To make it very simple, remember how I said that projectiles can explode inside of your gun? Well, these, along with the particular component inside the shell customizer, makes it to where not only do they not explode, but they evacuate your gun so as to not be on your ship and not to be a danger to you and your friendly vessels. And then we come with these. These are so you can make rail guns. These allow your projectile to travel much faster, hit harder, get higher AP to do more damage, as well as you can use some of that rail draw to increase your accuracy. To make a railgun, you will need this attached to your firing piece, as well as at least one of these railgun magnets. This is the capacity for your gun. and you need chargers to give your gun actual charge from your vehicle, but those are a bit more complicated, so I'll save those for APS 1.02. Let's move over to Mantlets. Mantlets come in 5 flavors. We have the Omni Mantlet. I've already explained to you guys how it's equidistant in all areas. We have the Elevation Mantlet, which is better at up and down, a little weaker left to right. The AA Mantlet, which is really good from here, flats to up, but can't really go down very well, left or right very well. The Big Elevation Mantlet, which is phenomenal for up and down motion, but very bad for left and right. And then the Big Omni Mantlet, the 3x3 variant. It is equidistant in all areas, but as you see, it is a much larger piece than the rest, having a larger footprint, taking up way more area, and making other stuff more difficult in the process because you have to account for its size. Now then, with all that out of the way, let's go over to a very, very simplistic example of what an APS can be. This is it, ladies and gentlemen, the bare minimum for a gun to actually fire. You need the firing piece itself, some way to give it ammo, like so, and then a tiny, teeny, tiny little barrel. So if I come here, come out of build mode, and go to 1, you'll see that I now have control over this gun. If you look at it, we have a azimuth of -5 to +5 with elevation -5 to +5. That means I can aim upward by 5, down by 5, right and left, and that's not a lot. You know, I basically have this very tiny window to fire upon, which is why a Mantlet is great. But I do promise this thing does in fact fire. As you can see, it has fired this tiny little projectile. But this is an absolutely horrible gun. Let's move over to an example of something that you might actually end up using. We have this tiny 3x3 gun that I created for this example. As you can see, this thing is also 60mm. It will be firing the exact same projectile we set up over here. It has a loader limit of 106.7, an intake limit of 106.7, and a coolant limit of 107.8. That means this gun is limited by its loader limit, and it will only be able to sustain fire at 106.7 RPM, which is still pretty good, but this gun is very small. I would use it very seriously, but it's just to show you what a gun would look like on a turret. As you can see, it shoots a lot faster. It doesn't take up all too much more space for its firepower. We have a mantlet for up and down because the turret here takes care of our left to right motion. But yeah, that is an exceptionally brief look at APS weapons in this game. I hope you guys learned something. This is basically people who have figured out the UI of the game, and that's basically it. This current series is not meant for anybody that's beyond, let's say, 20 hours into the game. I will be getting into much more complicated topics later, but I want to make sure I don't leave anybody left out, particularly now that From the Depths has stopped going through so many changes. As many of us veterans know, this game has metamorphosized dozens of times. Many systems changed, a lot of things ripped out, changed. A lot of the time I have played this game is basically useless because all those systems are completely different. But, like I said, this is for the complete noobs, people who have just picked up the game and have no idea where to start, and I know that this game can be quite complicated and intimidating, and I'm here to help those people out. So, with that being said, that's all I've got, guys. Make sure you do those YouTube things, like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care, and bye-bye.
More than half of them missed.
Yeah, but the bulwark is not happy about the half of the miss.
They just decided to roll over.
You've got holes in the bottom. Okay, now it's. I think your Sagaris is about to end the space.